going to start off with a brief introduction of yourself.
My name is Micholas. I'm from the Oneida Nation of the Thames First Nation. Um, I grew up at Oneida. Oneida is located about 30 kilometers southwest of the city of London, and the Oneidas came into Canada in 1840, and there was we left New York after we were exiled from New York by the New York militia, and we fought for the Americans during the Revolutionary War, and then they didn't honor their treaty with us, which was the Treaty of Canandaigua, and forced most Indigenous people out of the colony of New York after the Revolutionary War. So my ancestors came to Canada. They were another group that went to Wisconsin, but my ancestors came to Canada, and they boarded a barge in Ohio and came across Lake Erie and ended up in Port Stanley. And they walked up to where we're currently settled, and I call it a settlement because the Oneida Nation was we had 5,000 pounds of sterling silver upon our arrival, and we purchased the land from the at that time the Upper Canada Privy Council, or the Privy Council of Upper Canada rather, and so that's where we've been living. And so we're a settlement, not a reserve under the Indian Act. Like most reserves were set aside by the government as a reservation pursuant to the act. Oneida is a settlement in that we purchased the land straight from the Upper Privy Council. And since then, there's never been a definition of how we hold that land. Like we we're not we're not a reserve. We like to think of ourselves as completely sovereign and independent. But there's all kinds of confusion along the way, and debate about how independent and sovereign we really are, because we are in receipt of federal funds from the government of Canada. And I grew up in Oneida, just outside of London, Ontario, and we've had a 30-year boil water advisory. Something that would never be accepted anywhere else in the country, and just two doors down, it would never be accepted, and we're two doors down from them, and we were kind of forced to live under these conditions. They've opened up a landfill all around us. They've cut down all the forests all around us. Hunting has become hard. We had to become essentially dependent on the government for our ability to live in each and every way.
Luke, you got elected as a councillor at some point to Oneida. How did you end up getting into politics?
I looked at all my uncles and great uncles and relatives and the people before me, and they were all leaders in my community. They were past chiefs, and they really saw a light in me that they wanted me to go further in life and to represent our people. And that's something that they've always vocalized and along the way. And when I was 17, I just turned 18. And I remember they had come out with people with the records for those who get nominated, and I saw my name up there. I was like, what the hell, like, so somebody just kind of told me. They said, hey, I seen your name on the thing, and I said, what? And I went over to the band office, and there it was. I was nominated by two people to run in the election. I ran in the election, and I came like dead last. Like there was two people running for the 13th position, and or for the 12th position, sorry, rather. And so then in that situation where there's a tie, then the electoral officer gets to cast the vote, the last vote to break the tie. And so obviously, her vote was in my favor, and so that was the first time I was 18 years old. I just got onto council. I just met you, Ron. Way back in that day, and we were introduced to you from the Grand Chief of the Association of Iroquois and Allied Indians. His name was Salt, Larry Salt, and he was working with our boss, with your boss at the time, Len Domino, and introduced us to Len and the team, which included you, and and you guys came to do some training for us at just at Watauga First Nation, and talking to us about media relations and government relations and lobbying, and of course, like, and I think Peter Regenstrief was working with you at the time and doing some media relations stuff, and you asked us, well, asked me in particular to be a part of some media training, and yeah, I really sucked at it. I really. I was like, Peter put me in a couple of different positions, and asked me a couple of tough questions in front of a camera, and boy, was I sweating, and it was set up like there was a big camera and lights and everything, and it really felt like it was a true media event.
What was the difference? What did you see that was the difference? Like when you did it with the community versus with a GR company, what was the main difference there?
We had a visit from a guy named Robert Hausen, who was the then Regional Director General of Indigenous Affairs or Aboriginal Affairs at the time. Well, actually, it was Indian Affairs still at the time,
Yes.
and and so he was coming to visit Oneida, and I remember I'm just gonna really stick it to him, and I'm gonna let him really know how I feel because all these other counselors and nobody else is gonna bring up all this stuff, so I'm gonna bring it up, and so I did. And I spent and I took a lot of time away from my community, poking, prodding, talking about how 500 years of oppression and what they did to us, and so there was nothing wrong with what I said in the sense that there was nothing inaccurate. But um, later, it was so bad the chief came to me and said, like, listen, Luke, like it's not. I'm not trying to say what you said was wrong, but now all the files that Oneida had that were sitting on the top of that desk are probably going to go all the way down because that guy does not want to meet with us. He will not meet with us again because you just attacked him at a meeting. And I thought to myself, like, and I was 18, so I mean, it didn't matter whether what he said. I was right. I felt that I was right. And it wasn't until I came to work for you guys that I realized how wrong I really was. Because no matter what has happened historically, Bob, Mr. Hausen, was not responsible for 500 years of colonial oppression.
You and I started the business at the CCS group as partners, government relations. In 2006, we left Leonard, started our business. First thing that we wanted to target, which I talked to you about, was with First Nations. Our first client was Chief Dean Sayers, Batchwana, and
Mhm.
that started making it real. We started our journey there with I remember even telling Dean, like, pick any meeting in Ottawa. I'll get you any meeting in Ottawa. Just pay for our kilometers, and we started our journey down to Ottawa without fail. And that's when it started becoming real for me. Take me through working with Oneida with your own community. Now, no longer in the position of leadership, now in a position of a government relations person advising.
I went back to Oneida several times to try to get a contract with them, and we were denied flat out every time. And they often would hear our presentation and just, well, they never actually made a decision. They just never made notice. They never made any decision. I think they talked about it and behind closed doors, and then they moved on and moved into other issues. But they never end up hiring me for the longest time. I end up going to the chief and saying, you tell all the youth to go out and to get an education, get the experience, and then come home and apply it. I said, but you're not giving me that chance. He said, well, you got me on that one, Luke. And he supported he supported us at that point. He supported our contract, and so then he hired us. But then they gave us like the most difficult file one can anybody that one could work on. They gave us
The
their
long-term care
proposal
home.
for their
Yeah.
long-term care home.
I was just going to ask you, how do you feel about
Sorry,
seeing the long-term care home now in the community, now that it's built and actually being expanded now?
like I'll come home after being away from the community for so long, and I see that building, and tears will come to my eyes because I'm just so proud of hard work and 20 years they were at it. 20 years they were trying to get somebody to believe in them, and our seniors were dying, and you have that now that service available. It's built right across from my mom's house. It's really, really awesome.
I was
And
going
there's
to
no other way
say,
to describe it.
I
Like
was going to say, do you know that after that, after Oneida got their license, I think they opened it up to other communities. So you essentially now I know Akwesasne got it before, but it was part of a bigger
Mhm.
package, if I can remember it correctly. But
Mhm.
but when Oneida got it, they were the first in a very long time to get a provincial license, and then all the other First Nations, like I'm working with Batchewana right now. I'm working with Rainy River First Nation. They're all beneficiaries of the work that you did there.